Legend has it that, to inspire his music, Emperor Nero burned Rome. Imagine an entire city in flames to inspire what was reportedly a mediocre melody. With an inexplicable budget of $200 million, it seems Todd Phillips has set Warner on fire to sing "The Joker is Me."
The Joker is me.
A terrible box office flop, the worst movie of the year. Warner Bros. Loses a gazillion bison dollars on a film that has infuriated everyone. Joker 2.0 runs naked, aflame among terrified investors, singing coming in suspad. Joker Folia 2 has unleashed the fury of the fans, who feel deeply insulted by what they see as a ritual humiliation of Joaquin Phoenix's iconic Joker. Less than a month after its release, it's already available on streaming platforms. Its 81% box office drop since opening weekend has cost Warner Bros. Between $150 and $200 million. Go musical, go broke. It's the apocalypse, the end of days, a betrayal of fans, daring to defy all that the West has ever held dear. But I liked it. Yes, I liked it. It's not a perfect film, not by any stretch. In fact, I have many critiques to make, but I think it's good. I've looked online, read various professional reviews, and everyone insists it's the worst abomination Todd Phillips could have birthed. Nobody has anything nice to say, so I guess I'm on my own. In a novel that conservatives often cite but rarely read, George Orwell, as if madness is the minority of one. Wow, I'm so special. Am I crazy? Am I folie like the Joker? My dear Nighthawks, the Joker's got it huge. He's hung. The Joker's an insult that turns me on. The Joker serves C-word in a musical.
Break, heart, break. Fail, live or fail. But if you can hear me complaining, I'm neither dead or in jail.
Like all artistic masterpieces, this film was born from a delirious dream that Joaquin Phoenix had one day, inspiring him to make a musical. I love this story because sometimes I dream in musicals too. In these dreams, I tend to sing very well, not like in real life. I really dig musicals, and I have a fond for the classics of old. Old musicals by Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers were the balm for the catastrophes of the world wars through cinema, and their light-hearted plots with happy endings and dances provided a refuge from a traumatic era. It works the same for me. When reality overwhelms me and I feel utterly abandoned, my mind retreats into a fantasy stage where I sing a song. And it so happens that the musical device of this film is exactly that, fugue stasis, fantasies of liberation in a horrible world. Turns out the Joker and I have more in common than I thought. Someone might say that this has nothing to do with the movie, that my strange escapist fetish makes me see it through rose-colored glasses. Okay, sure, and so what? This is my video. People always tell me I'm very pessimistic, so give me the luxury of being positive for a day, for Dio's sake. Finally, I have a positive and controversial opinion at the same time. So, hit the like and subscribe and then go ahead and call me a soy boy in the comments. Anyway, where were we? Ah yes, the whole musical thing was controversial to say the least. Many have seen it as a big fuck you to the fans and the Hollywood industry. Even the esteemed director Quentin Tarantino said that he loved that aspect of the film, its provocative way of completely subverting sequel expectations using Warner Bros. Capitalist pick money. Instead of making a film that incels would identify with, they made an abomination that seems tailor-made for my enjoyment. A high-stakes gamble to flip the script, shock the masses, and flop at the box office. The result has pleased only a few. Why a musical? Well, the first film wasn't exactly a musical, but it used licensed music almost like a music video. Its most famous scene is a demented dance on a staircase. It doesn't seem that strange to me. But then there's the explanation of provocation. The musical seems to be the genre that scares straight men, like wearing pink or watching Sailor Moon. Personally, I don't like this reasoning. It may be part of the motivation, but it seems cynical. I don't think anyone would make an entire movie purely out of spite for the toxic fans, and I don't think these fantastic songs would have been so well executed by these stars just so the Joker PFP incel on the X the Everything app can throw a fit. Reducing the movie to a petty reaction by Todd Phillips is childish, and it distorts any merit the movie may have. I think this film is a musical because it's a love story about a couple of nutters who live in a fantasy world they created because reality is unbearable. The movie starts with a delirious animated short by Sylvain Cromet, sung by Nick Cave, in which Arthur Fleck fights with his Joker shadow. It works for me. The musical number in the context of Delirium is not the most original idea. It's been done 1,000 times with terrible results, like that movie about autism directed by Zia. Do not watch it. But here it works. Arthur Fleck was already a musically inclined character in the first movie, which ends him institutionalized while hallucinating Sinatra's "That's Life" and doing a backlit dance.
That's life.
And this is amazing.
In the second, his complete descent into insanity is represented through musical delusions, consisting of jazz classics, chansons françaises, and Broadway musical numbers, because Arthur Fleck clearly has exquisite musical taste, especially because it's so similar to mine. Many people believe this sequel completely contradicts the original. I, however, think it's a logical continuation of its aesthetic and stylistic motifs taken to the extreme, to vaudeville, but backed by a humanism and sense of tragedy that, in my opinion, makes it far superior to the first film, which, aside from Phoenix's amazing performance, I found to be merely okay. And as I said, it's personal, but I also tend to take refuge in music during traumatic times. Without going into too much detail about my personal life, I was in a relationship where I was the victim of abuse, and during that time, my go-to movie list included Top Hat, The Gay Divorcee, The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, The Young Girls of Rochefort, Singing in the Rain, Holiday Inn, Anything Goes, and one that makes a special appearance in this movie, The Bandwagon. If I were thrown into an asylum for years awaiting a trial, it's not unthinkable that I'd end up hallucinating that I'm Fred Astaire tap dancing to the Continental down the asylum halls. And yes, most of these movies are light-hearted frivolities designed to ease the existential horror of my grandmothers, but I genuinely enjoy them, with no hipster post-irony of any kind. Watching Fred Astaire tap dance is, to me, the joy of life, a Dionysian and optimistic poetics that is almost impossible to find in today's culturally cynical, nihilistic landscape. Joker 2, of course, is the opposite of optimistic. Despite its constant tributes to classic musicals, beginning with those umbrellas of Cherbourg in the opening sequence, this story doesn't share the optimistic spirit of its influences. Instead, it's a constant display of the protagonist's miseries, with no respite, finding only a hint of color in his sick and delusional love for another maniac from Arkham Asylum. This fugue state lets us enter Arthur's pure subjectivity, humiliated and starving, still holding onto his Frank Sinatra fantasy. In this sense, the movie reminds me a bit of Terry Gilliam's cinema, which is, in turn, a constant reference to Don Quixote. Reality is so overwhelming and unjust, the system so flawed and corrupt, and we feel so alienated and powerless to change things that only fantasy offers us refuge. But none of these stories have a happy ending. The great machinery of oppression always ends up crushing our hero, often giving him an arbitrary and absurd death with no epic. And what is the basis of this fantasy? Well, none other than the damn Joker, of course. In the first movie, he was depicted as the epicenter of a budding social chaos that led to riots in Gotham. He became a symbol, an icon. Similarly, the movie itself caused many fans to emulate the fed-up citizens of Gotham, leading to all the associations between the film and the incel community. But a symbol is not a person. It's an idea. Joker is a fantasy, a mythology created by Arthur Fleck and his rabid fans. Comic book lovers might have expected this version of the character to turn into a crime lord, not a hollow man crushed by the very system that created him. But I like this decision. This is a film where the character of the Joker is slowly breaking down until he finally ends up making a complete fool of himself on the stand with his dumb jokes, ridiculous accent, anarchic gestures, all portrayed with a certain pathetic quality by Phoenix. This guy isn't epic. This guy is sad. He's Arthur Fleck. Ah yes, with so many musical delusions, I almost forgot to talk about the damn plot of the movie. You see, Arthur Fleck is being put on trial for his crimes in the first film, many of which were understandable or even admirable. The Joker did nothing wrong. Imagine Robert De Niro's role played by Bill Maher, and you'll be on my side right away. Personally, I don't particularly enjoy the trial storyline that takes up much of the second half of the film. I love seeing Catherine Keener as the defense attorney, serving as Arthur's last tether to the reality of the situation. But this storyline only holds up for those who have seen the first film. In fact, almost the entire trial plot seems like an epilogue to the previous film, with characters reappearing as witnesses on the stand. The idea itself isn't bad, but the way Joker 2 insists on recapping the events of the previous movie shows that, plot-wise, it has little to advance and sometimes feels tedious. Thank goodness for the musical numbers that overshadow all the courtroom talk and lead us to the protagonist's delirious introspections. There are a couple of scenes, however, where the courtroom setting shines. My favorite is when Arthur, playing as his own defense attorney and dressed as the Joker, questions his friend Gary Puddles, a short-statured man who witnesses one of his crimes. The poor guy is visibly uncomfortable and says, "Do you know how hard it was to lose you? You were the only one who didn't mock me for being a dwarf." This revives the Arthur within Joker. Not mocking a dwarf shows compassion, kindness, empathy, traits that the Joker lacks, but Arthur has. His facade falls into pieces. Joker becomes ridiculous when faced with a reality that slaps him in the face. Unfortunately, between this scene and the next, they insist on including a dreadful interlude with abuse directed at the Joker, which I can discuss on YouTube except to say that personally I didn't find it necessary. The other standout, of course, is the final movement when Arthur Fleck confesses, ready to accept his lethal sentence. Although he's wearing his makeup, he no longer tells jokes, there are no antics. His life is falling apart. He can no longer sustain Joker. He can't bear the weight of the symbol. There is no Joker. Only me. I killed 6 people. I shouldn't have, but I did. This is the moment Harley Quinn leaves the courtroom and the entire house of cards collapses. Right after that, in the courtroom phone booth, he sings to Harley the most pathetic love song ever written. I love it and I hate it. It's the most poetic way to be a hopeless Sims that exists. Ne me quitte pas by Jacques Brel. Don't leave me. I won't cry. I won't speak. I'll hide myself to watch you dance and smile. Let me become the shadow of your shadow, the shadow of your hand, the shadow of your dog. But don't leave me. Joaquin Phoenix's performance here breaks my heart. True, as a singer, he's nothing special, but he manages to imbue everything he sings with a heart-wrenching feeling that I find very moving. Of course, it all ends badly. After a terrorist attack on the courthouse, Joker manages to escape with the help of fanatics who ultimately end up terrifying the Joker himself with their arbitrary violence. After escaping, Arthur Fleck meets Lee on the stairs from the first movie. And don't ask how Lady Gaga knows it's an iconic location. I suppose she saw it in the TV movie that she mentions. Anyway, she sings, "It's entertainment." Yeah, she sings the song from the Fred Astaire movie, but he responds, "I don't want to keep singing anymore." The fantasy is broken, Joker is dead, and facing Lee is just a vulgar killer. A person, and she never loved the person, only the symbol. In the end, Arthur returns to Arkham Asylum and is stabbed by a random inmate. The ending is utterly anticlimactic. A nameless guy, another product of Gotham's systematic corruption, ends Arthur Fleck's life with a few stabs. In the background, blurred, he cuts the corners of his mouth as if aspiring to be the new Joker. But I don't care about that. I care about poor Arthur lying on the floor, dead, but hallucinating a farewell where That's Life by Frank Sinatra plays again, but this time in the voice of Harley Quinzel. Joker 2 is far from a perfect film. Its need to lean on its predecessor's mythology and try to deconstruct it might seem like an artistic success to me, to a handful of others, and to Hideo Kojima, but it's clearly driven audiences away, and the criticism has been overwhelming. Trying to make an introspective musical of 2 hours and 20 minutes with barely any plot in the DC universe was destined to fail. Its ending also feels cruel and arbitrary, leaving Arthur without a shred of mercy in a final victimization after all he's suffered. There's not a glimmer of light at the end, only a bitter disappointment. Many musicals kill their characters at the end, but at least they give them a grand send-off before zipping up the bag over their lifeless bodies. Joker 2 has been a box office flop, a resounding one that will likely jeopardize the director's career. However, it might eventually become a cult film, re-evaluated after the initial rejection by audiences. I feel it has the potential to be appreciated after the disaster, but can a cult movie exist in the relentless whirlpool of superhero cinema and its derivatives? Everything seems to fall into the same sausage-making machine, to be consumed and forgotten, and this movie is part of that endless sludge, shining in its own way but drifting downstream toward oblivion. Who knows, maybe Joaquin Phoenix will end up doing a humiliating cameo in Deadpool vs. Batman 2, the franchise crossover boogaloo, which will be released in the last towns left standing after climate change has scorched the earth in the year 2046. I hope this video is part of that horrible, horrible future. Speaking of that horrible future, next month is just a few weeks away and I do need to pay my bills, so here is my Patreon link. Patronize me, and please like and subscribe, all the usual stuff you expect at the end of these videos. Hope you have a nice day, and now please, bug it off.